Hey everybody, it's Lance, and it's been a long time, but welcome back to Texas Restorations. This is episode 8, working on the transmission of the R65LS. Sorry I've been away for a while. My video editor, my son, went off to college, and I couldn't catch him till he was home for Thanksgiving to do some videos for me. So we should be able to get quite a few done here. So hopefully we'll have the series complete and y'all can watch it all the way through the end. But back to where we were, just pulling the transmission out. I'd already cleaned this bike up quite a bit. I'd used a pressure washer, really blasted everything pretty good because I knew I was taking everything apart, so I didn't worry about it too much. And the plan now is just to open up the transmission. It wasn't leaking. It actually wasn't really all that oil stained, but the bike had just been sitting for so long, 25 years, that if we started riding it, it would have started leaking like crazy. Seals, gaskets, everything were dry and brittle. So that's big torque right there to get the bolt off the output flange. But that Milwaukee torque impact wrench is amazing. It's just an M18 model, and I have that gargantuan output flange holder that I made. I probably overdid a little on the length of the shaft, but and then this is another little piece of just regular steel that I just put in the lathe and turned to the proper diameter to fit inside. Got some grade 8 bolts and grade 10 bolt there, and it does a great job, with just popping off that output flange. That sits on a taper. You can hear by how many times I had to hit it. It's on there really tight without some sort of special tool. I don't think you're getting that apart. That's really been some of the fun of working on this bike. Is this and the in my other 1982, the blue one that's in the background. Making all the special tools was really a lot of the fun. And I'm really happy that I made those for my bike and then was able to find another bike to do. And I'd like to do another BMW. I have another project I'm in the middle of now that I'll be excited to show y'all. We'll get these videos out, and I'll get right on to project number 2, which I think is going to be exciting. But here we are. Those bearings go into that housing. There's 3 bearings. You've got to really heat it up, expand the aluminum, and you can see the 3 bearings there. Once you get it hot enough, though, it's easy to take off. This I learned the hard way on the blue bike in the background. I pulled it all apart and lifted the transmission up and poured fluid all over myself, but here it doesn't look like much came out. So now, same thing, just start pulling things out. That shaft holds the shift forks, and then these bolts are shoulder bolts, and they fit very tight in the case to just sort of keep it from leaking transmission fluid through there. And they hold the shift mechanism on. There are both shift forks. There's one more hidden on the other side. Now, in order to get those out, same thing, bearings are on the other side. So it's easy I have a little mount it in the vise and heat things up, and now it's pretty easy to just heat it and pull those out. You can't tell, but that transmission housing is pretty warm. You saw me drop that in the ultrasonic. I didn't bore you with a whole bunch of ultrasonic videos, but everything here went in there and cleaned it up. In fact, this is the transmission housing all cleaned up, and now just starting to get it ready to go back together. Once again, heating it up and putting the new input shaft seal in. That part came from Moto Electric, who is really where I got the bulk of this stuff. The folks there are great to deal with. I can't say enough good stuff about them. Again, just making sure that's flat. Now go to the other side, and this is the output shaft seal, and it goes in sort of opposite of what you would think. The lip is facing you, so you need to I had to machine a special driver to bear on the strong part of that seal in the middle and push it in that way. Now this is really kind of preventative replacement of a lot of wear parts in that shift mechanism. The springs and there's little springs you can see in the bags in the foreground, and those clips and that nylon roller, all those parts get old and brittle, and you can lose your shifting. So it's real inexpensive to buy all those parts. So I just went through and replaced them all, and all the springs, clips, everything. And it's not a big deal at all, and it's not expensive really. I think it's probably, I don't know, maybe $30 worth of parts, $40. Here we are, just putting it all back together. On one hand, you think getting into the transmission would be hard. The BMW transmission is really simple and pretty intuitive to go back together. So you can see by me backing off from the heat, you have to get that case hot again, and it takes a long time to get that case hot. The whole thing's a big aluminum heat sink, but when you do, those bearings will fall right back down in there. And again, the bike doesn't have a lot of miles on it, so I wasn't too worried about the bearings. I checked all of them. Nothing was scored, nothing looked burned. Everything was in good shape. So again, the whole reason to do this was really just to replace gaskets and seals, with the exception of those springs and the other thing in the shift mechanism. There was nothing wrong with this bike at all. I just know, like, say, if we didn't do this, it would have probably started leaking like crazy. Those are those bolts that fit real tight into the case. Probably would have been a little easier maybe if the case was still hot, but nonetheless they went in. And then you can see that baggie sitting on the bench. If you put new gears in, new bearings, everything in, you've got to re-shim the transmission. So those shafts, it's a precision fit between the bottom of the transmission case and the housing. But if you don't change anything, as long as you put the shims back in right, you don't have to deal with re-shimming or shimming the whole thing, which is a pretty complex job. So I just drew a diagram, kept the shims all together in proper order, and put them all back in the right spot, and everything should be fine. It's me just using that wimpy oiler, thinking I'm going to put enough oil in, and I decided no, I'm going to get after it and probably overdo it. It's just Spectro transmission fluid. But again, you get that case hot, and it falls right down on with just pushing it with your hands. And the manual and common sense says, make sure it goes on easy. Don't use the screws or hammer or anything to push it on. Just let it slide on with hand pressure, and then tighten down the cap screws and torque the cap screws down. Now here's the tough job. I think that's 200 and something. It's like 170 pounds of torque, or it's a lot. So I yanked on it, and then had to get my son to come hold it, and we both yanked on it, but eventually got the torque right. Obviously, if you're doing this, you'll have to look it up, but it's a pretty good job. Now, essentially, everything's back together. Now it's just a function of the last few odds and ends. Here's the speedometer drive gear, just drops down in there. And Here's the shift shaft seal. It just pops in, and actually I started it, but it pops down, kind of pops down in there deeper. It has a little boss that it goes against, and fill plug here with a new sealing washer in the shift shaft. Actually, the shift shaft's two pieces. This is the outside piece. It has kind of a weird little way it registers, and then that bolt pulls, that cap screw pulls them both together. The drain plug in, and all this stuff I just tightened, sort of hand tight. Everything I went back and torqued proper spec later, other than this neutral switch that you can't get on, so I just kind of cranked on it. Now the moment of truth is shifting it through all the gears. I'm pretty pregnant at this point. If it doesn't shift, I've already got it all back together. But like I said, the transmission's pretty simple, and as long as you don't force anything together, everything goes together easy. You know it's going to work. But there it is. It shifted great, cleaned up, resealed and ready to go. But thanks again for tuning in, and I promise it won't be such a long wait till the next video. We'll get this series finished up and get on to the next project, which I hope you're going to love. And thanks again for visiting.